Okay, good evening all. You're welcome to today's class. So today we are actually going to be having a class on public sector accounting, and the topic we are to have today is accounting for local government. Is accounting for local government. There are various things we will look at here. We're looking at the structure of a local government, the administration of a local government. We also be looking at. So we're also going to be looking at the various sources of income of a local government and the various types of expenditure a local government can achieve. We also look at the accounting system and how the accounts are prepared accordingly. Then to start with, we will first of all look at the purpose of a local government. Now, a local government area has a role to liaise with the people at the grassroots level and the government. It is a government that is closer to the general people. So this local government tries to communicate what is the grand issue of the people to the government, either at the state level or at the federal level. All right, good. Now, a local government is the third tier of government in Nigeria. It is the third tier of government in Nigeria, and it has various functions. One of the functions of local government is the economic planning and making recommendation to the state government or federal government on the appropriate actions or things to be done to move the economic well-being of the people. Another one is establishment of cemeteries, burial grounds, and homes for destitutes or the infirmed. Another one is licensing of bicycles, trucks, and motor cars, establishment and maintenance of markets. These are the various functions of local government council. You can read up more of these down in your notes that will be provided to you. Another one is we'll be looking at the structure. How is the local government structure? Now let's start from the known. The federal government is structured into three arms: the legislative arm, the executive arm, and the judiciary. This is how also the local government is structured. However, we have the two core structures of the local government. These are the legislative arm, and so these are the legislative arm, as I said earlier on, and the executive arm of government. Now, this diagram would help you to understand who falls under the legislative arm and who also falls under the executive arm. You can look at the executive arm of government, you would understand better. Now, under the executive arm, we have the chairman. You know now, the chairman, sometimes elections are conducted, and those who are vying for the position of chairman will go for it and bear a flag, the flag of their party. We have the vice chairman, which can be likened to the vice president at the federal level or the deputy governor at the state level. We have the supervisors. The supervisors are those whom we can liken to ministers. We can liken these people to ministers. They supervise the various departments in the local government. Ordinarily, a local government is made to have maximum of 5 departments. Maximum of 5 departments. Maximum of 5 departments. Maximum of 5 departments and minimum of 3 departments. a minimum of 3 departments. A minimum of 3 departments. A minimum of 3 departments. Now, you must know this. On the other hand, when we look at the legislative arm of government, we have the leader. We also have the deputy leader. Now, the leader can be likened to the Speaker of the House of Assembly at the state level and the Speaker of the National Assembly at the federal level. The deputy leader can also be likened to the deputy Speaker of the House of Assembly. Then we have the councillors. The councillors are the senators, the House of Representatives in terms of comparison. So these are the people who make the law at the local government areas. So we call them the councillors. Then we have the clerk of the house, whom is more or less like a secretary to the house. He documents, make records of the proceedings as each house is in process. So this is the structure of a local government council, and I hope this makes sense to you. Then we'll move on to the sources of revenue to the local government. In terms of classification, there are major 3 classifications of local government revenue. The first is statutory, the second is permissive, and the third is incidental. So let's look at the statutory revenue, the sources, the statutory revenue. Now, when we talk about the statutory, we are looking at the revenue they get from federal government and state. The local government gets 20.6% of the federation account. Whatsoever is standing credit to the federation account is what the local government gets. All right. Secondly, they get 10% of whatsoever is standing credit to the state government internally generated revenue. All right. Then other revenues that they can get are fees and charges that the National Assembly has enacted to fall under their purview of collection and assessment. So that said, you will find out that these are the revenues that fall under their purview for collection. Now look at permissive sources of revenue. These are those little rates, fines and fees and licenses that local government charges. We have the shop and kiosk rates, we have tenement rates, we have on and off liquor fees, we have slaughter slab fee, we have marriage, birth, death registration fees, we have naming of streets fees and what have you. So these are the things that local government charge as make as revenue also aside statutory, so we'll call them permissive. So you can be asked in the exam to list the items that falls under permissive source of revenue of the local government. You should be able to remember kiosk, tenement fee, marriage, birth, death, registrations and what have you. All right. So the last but not the least under the classification is incidental. Now these are the things that the revenues that the local government can make when they embark on some ventures by themselves, probably farming, you understand, or some technological activities that could generate revenue for the local government area. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is statutory allocation. However, we shall look at this statutory allocation when we look at sources of revenue for the government. All right. Then we will also at peculiarity look at federation accounts. Then federation accounts in quotes is that account that all the revenue from head 1 to 3 are paid into. All the revenue from head 1 to 3 are paid into. Now these revenues come from direct taxation, indirect taxation, and we also have oil and gas revenue. So they flow into federation accounts. Now this federation account, any amount standing credit to this federation account is distributed at the end of the month amongst the tiers of government. And you know we have 3 tiers of government. We have the federal government, we have the state government, we have the local government. Now the various rates there are distributed amongst these people, among these 3 tiers of government. We have the federal government takes 52.68 28%, and the state government takes 26.72%, and the local government takes 20.6%. So these are the things about these three tiers of government and how the revenues are shared amongst them. All right, so we'll move down to the next item, which is administration of local government area. So who and whom administers or manages the local. So when we use the word administration in management, we are actually referring to management. The only difference between the both is that management is preferably used in the private sector, while administration is preferably used in the public sector and all that. So with that said, we go on to look at the various persons responsible for the management of the local government area. The first person is the chairman, the second person is the vice chairman, the third person is the supervisors, whom is actually not one person. So the number of supervisors is dependent on the number of departments we have in the local government council. So that said, the next is the treasurer, and the next is the secretary, and the last but not the least is the head of personnel management and all that. So we'll move on to look at this set of people and what the area. He is the accountant general of the local government area. That's the duty of the treasurer. So he renders financial advice to the council. He serves as the secretary to the budget committee. He receives and disburses fund. He receives and disburses fund to the authorized ends, keeping proper accounting records, and preparing the financial statements of the local government at the end of every year. So these are the things that the treasurer does in the local government area. Then let's look at the secretary to the local government. The secretary to the local government can be likened to the SSG of the local government. However, the secretary functions has been delimited after some executive orders was given out. However, the secretary to the state government and other important dignitaries coordinate the operations of the various departments and represents the chairman as directed. The secretary is the executive arm of the local government and maintains the records of proceedings of meetings. So he, as a secretary, he maintains the records and proceedings of the meeting. He performs other assignments as may be delegated by the chairman from time to time. So we have the director of general service administration. Although this was not there, but I think this can be likened to the head of personnel management, which actually is much more responsible and is also a signatory to the account of the local government. So as much as the chairman signs for money to leave the local government, the head of personnel management must also sign before money can leave the local government area for anything as the case may be. So it's an important position in the local government council as the case may be. So thank you on that for your attendance. So let's continue. So we'll now look at the council's legislation. I've explained this ab initio. These are made up of councillors. They are the lawmakers at the local government level. So the councillors, upon election, will choose one amongst them whom will serve as the leader of the council. then also choose amongst them who will serve as the deputy leader of the council, so that in the absence of the leader of the council, the deputy leader can deputize at his capacity as a deputy leader of the council. So we have the clerk. The clerk maintains the records of the proceedings of the house. So the clerk can be compared to the secretary of the local government council, as the case may be. So the next thing we'll be looking at is the election of leaders in the council. The elections of leaders in the council. I've told you now that they are elected through a legitimate process, and this legitimate process comes through series of voting, where each of the councillors will be voted from his or her ward. So if you win the election under a particular party as a flag bearer, you can take over as a councillor representing that ward, just as we have the members of the House of Representatives representing the local government council. That is how we also have members representing federal constituencies at the Federal House of Assembly, and that's why we also have members representing each senatorial zones at Senate level. So these are that for that. So the councillors represent the ward. So each ward has a councillor. So the councillors represent these wards accordingly. All right. So move on. Appointment of supervisors. So supervisors are appointed just like ministers are appointed, just like commissioners are appointed. So the ministers are at the level of the federal government, the commissioners are at the level of the state government, while the supervisors are at the level of the local government area. So it is important for us to know that supervisors, when used at the local government area, we are referring to people who serve at the capacity of ministers and commissioners at the state and federal level respectively. So these supervisors are meant to be the executive head of each department. Remember, we have ministries in the federal government, we have ministries in the state government, but we have departments in the local government area. So these supervisors will head various ministry departments. So they will head various departments accordingly and serve as much as they can to ensure that things are done well based on what the chairman wants. So they are representing the chairman. They will enunciate their ideas, they will enunciate policies, prepare their budgets, and work towards achievement of these budgets as the chairman directs and all that. So we have types of expenditures in the local government area. Of course, personnel costs and maintenance and repairs of a whole lot of things in the local government. Then we have capital expenditures. So these are the various expenditures we have at the local government area accordingly. So the next item we'll be looking at is the accounting system of a local government. Then every local government has an accounting system, just like the state and the local government areas. Now, recently, the 3 tiers of government has adopted accrual basis of accounting as a system of preparing their financial statement, no longer the usual cash basis we know. So the accounting system is carried out or done in accordance with the accrual basis of accounting. And you know what accrual basis of accounting is. Accrual basis of accounting is that a basis of accounting that records revenue as they are incurred, as they are earned, and also record expenditure as they are incurred accordingly. So that is what it is when we talk about accrual basis of accounting. I will reiterate again. This is a basis of accounting that records revenue as when earned and expenditure when incurred, so not when cash is paid and all that. So that is that for that on the accounting system. And the accounting system of the local government is headed by the treasurer. And remember, I did say at the issue that the treasurer is the accountant general of the local government area, but unfortunately he is not called the accountant general of the local government, rather he is called the treasurer. So he performs the whole function that an accountant general does. So he is the head of treasury of the local government area. He signs us money, he disburses money, he keeps records of this money and prepares financial statements, and also advises the chairman on the best way to raise funds as the case may be when the need arises. So that is that for that on that. So we have typical local government council final accounts. So what are the final accounts of the local government council? We'll be looking at things like statement of revenue and expenditure, statement of assets and liabilities, statement of cash flow. Now, statement of cash flow is known as statement number 1. Statement of revenue and expenditure is known as statement number 2, while statement of assets and liability is known as statement number 3. We'll see this as we progress in our class so far. All right, good. So this is a format. All right, this is a format. It is in the pack. You can go back to the pack and look at it accordingly. So we have revenue, we have local rates. So what are the various revenue you think that a local government makes? We have local rates, we have local licenses and fees and fines, we have earnings from commercial undertakings, we have rent and local government property, rent on local government property, we have interest payment and dividend, we have grants, we have statutory allocations, as the case may be. All right, so the next item we'll have is now expenditure. So when you have grouped all the revenue, you add them together. So you now move to expenditure section. What are the expenditures? The council's expenditures, the office of the secretary, finance department, the education department, the works housing, and what have you. The traditional office, because they will pay the traditional rulers, the education budget, the environmental, sewage, agricultural and rural development, transportation, workshop. You add all this together, you have total expenditure. Take away total expenditure from total revenue, you have your excess of revenue over expenditure, or excess of expenditure over revenue, as the case may be. So that is that about that on the format of a statement of revenue and expenditure of a local government area. Do you understand? Good. So be that as it may, we'll move on to the next item. We'll look at statement of assets and liability. Now, when we look at statement of assets and liability, we have under the assets we have advances and debtors, we have cash and bank. Under liabilities, we have bank overdrafts and general revenue. So I will explain this in detail when we take a question. All right, so do not much mind about this. So that is that about that. So what we will do next class is to take equations and solve, and you would understand better as we take. Thank you again for attending Click Cloud. Please always write, make notes. When the notes is uploaded, you can also read and revise them. Please take it serious. Your approach towards these classes matters. Thank you for attending, and do have a nice evening.